This is Jimmy.
And Scott.
And this is the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP Lacrosse. On this podcast, we will be discussing with athletes, coaches, and other professionals what specific mental techniques they utilize to prepare, compete, and recover. These are the questions that fascinate us, and we want to hear what our guests do to be their best mentally. And hopefully, you get a little something out of these episodes to help move you forward. On today's episode, we host Chris Gill, a.k.a. the Crease Beast. Chris is a Long Island native and attended Hauppauge High School, where he played lacrosse at the goalie position. Chris attended the university at Albany and played 4 years for the Great Danes. As a senior at Albany, Chris was named captain by his teammates and coaching staff and was also named most valuable player. In 2016, Chris was inducted into the University at Albany Athletics Hall of Fame. Chris currently is the owner and operator of Crease Beast Lacrosse, co-director of the Long Island Goalie Academy, and head coach of the men's U15 Puerto Rican national team. Chris is also a participant and supporter of the Headstrong Save a Life campaign. In this episode, we learn about Chris's journey to Albany, what drove him and what gave him the belief that he could be a Division I goalie. Chris shares invaluable advice for aspiring goalies about life as a goalie and as a backup, and what it really means to be a great teammate. Chris's story starts with him wearing baseball catcher's equipment, comes full circle, and ends with him wearing catcher's equipment. To learn more about Chris and keep up with his busy schedule, visit him at creasebeastlacrosse.com and follow him on Instagram at Crease Beast Lacrosse. Chris and I had a great conversation. I know you'll enjoy it, and hopefully it helps you find what you're looking for. Chris Gill, welcome to the podcast.
Hey, Coach Jim, thanks so much for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to have you on. We're going to have a good time today.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so let's just jump right in. Talk about your background. Give us a little context.
Yeah, sure. So I started playing lacrosse around 7th grade. I've always kind of played sports as a kid, youth sports. Dad kind of coached me a lot. My dad coached me a lot. I got an older brother who was always, coaching me. He played baseball and he played football and hockey, and so I kind of followed in his footsteps with that. And at some point, a lot of my friends were lacrosse guys, and I played hockey goalie, so at some point, they were just like one day like, hey, why don't you get a goalie stick and just come, in our friend's backyard and, my friend's backyard, and we'll shoot on you. He's got a net. And that was a big thing a long time ago.
Oh, yeah. I remember those days.
You got that one friend with a net, and it was like, whoa.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everyone else was building like 2x4s and like strips of carpet. And you have like one buddy who actually had a goal. You're like, all right, we're friends with him.
Yeah, or repurpose hockey net situation or something. Yeah, OG,
Yep.
Original gangster stuff. So it was, it was fun. And I started really like enjoying it, and I played baseball as a catcher, so I was always kind of used to the physicality of just, the hand-eye stuff. And I did not make the 8th grade baseball team, or the middle school baseball team in the 8th grade.
What middle school?
And Hauppauge Middle School. So
okay.
I was in the Hauppauge School District.
Yep.
And it destroyed me, when I was, being a middle school kid and not making the baseball team. And I played travel baseball as a kid. I played baseball my whole life. That was like my sport. And it was the best thing that ever happened in reality.
Well, looking back, I mean, that's definitely a life-altering situation for you.
Yeah.
How was it? How was it at the time?
At the time, it was horrible.
Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I'd always played sports. I was always, pretty good at sports, a pretty good athlete, I thought. And all of a sudden, there was just so many kids going out for the baseball team. I believe it was my 7th grade year. And then I didn't make the team. So that summer, I actually went to Hauppauge High School. The coach there, Jerry Goodfellow, had a lacrosse camp. And so, a lot of the varsity players were the counselors. So I went there and started learning a little bit. And that was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed that. And then I played my first year of organized lacrosse was 8th grade.
Wow.
And I fell in love. It was just awesome. And, I had a kind of weird situation because my 9th grade year, I broke my wrist in like end of February, beginning of March.
Okay.
So I actually missed my entire 9th grade season.
Wow. So you didn't start till 8th grade, and then you basically didn't play as a 9th grader due to injury.
At all.
Wow.
Yep. And then I went straight to 10th grade, JV.
Did you break your wrist playing a sport?
I was actually lifting. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Funny story.
Ooh.
Yeah, I was actually lifting in the gym, and I did a clean the wrong way, and it just kind of did not end well for me. Yeah.
Oof.
But playing in 10th grade was awesome. I really found my sport by that time, and even though I played football and I had wrestled a couple of seasons, which I did not love, but it got me in good shape.
Sure.
Lacrosse, everything else was to get ready for lacrosse season.
Okay,
I played other sports, but it was just like I became obsessed. I started getting inside lacrosse.
Yeah, I remember getting those delivered for sure.
The black and white,
Yeah.
the old school, like a real newspaper, cutting out the pictures of the goalies from like Loyola and Georgetown, and some games would be on TV.
Yep.
Obviously Memorial Day weekend, and I would just record it. I remember Telecare back in the day on the island here.
Telecare?
Yeah.
Yeah.
They would have Hofstra games like once a week.
Yeah.
It
was like religious. It was like religious programming during the day.
Yeah.
Yep.
And they would play the same Hofstra game for like 2 weeks straight. But Mark Screwitt was their goalie.
Yeah.
And I would run, grab a blank tape or tape over something and record it. And I just watched this one game constantly.
That's
Anytime
awesome.
I wanted to watch lacrosse, I had that one tape of that Hofstra game that I would tape, the championships and stuff. And
Yeah.
I just became, I got bit by the bug and started going to camp because there were no travel teams at the time. And that was the best.
Yeah.
Millen, I went up to Vermont. And then I think my junior year, when I was in Hauppauge, I went to Army, and that's when I started getting recruited, working with coaches and stuff.
Okay. Very cool. Yeah.
And that's kind of how, I started out.
Wow. Yeah. So just to rewind real quick. So you're no longer playing baseball, and you just jumped right into being a goalie just because you were kind of in the neighborhood, like as a goalie and a catcher, and it was just kind of like the natural fit for you.
Yeah. And I got to tell you, I tell my son all the time, because my son, he's 9 now, and he's starting to get into hockey, and he's like, "Oh, I would kill you in hockey," and we're starting to play. I'm like, "Dude, I am a street hockey fiend." Like back in the day, me, I have a brother who's 6 years older. Like I said, him and all the older kids in the neighborhood would play street hockey. And I was a goalie, and like I felt like I did pretty well for myself. I think I'm still a better hockey goalie than a lacrosse goalie, personally.
Yeah. Well, they're not taking it easy on you in the street.
Yeah, they're not taking it easy on you. They're all older than me. At least 4, 5, 6 years older than me.
Yeah.
So, and then when I went to summer camps, I always thought I was pretty good at lacrosse, but it was tough for me because there was a kid in my grade who was really, really good goalie, and so him and I were always competing for a starting spot. So I was always like unsure of how good I was. And then when I went to these camps, I would play up. Like the counselors and the coaches would put me in a division or two higher. So when I was in 8th grade, I guess 9th grade, I went to a couple of camps when I was healed up in the summer.
Just randomly?
They would just.
Oh, it was like based on your size, like something like that.
No,
you think, or just
it was just play really.
Okay.
Like I would be with my age group, and then they would be like, "All right, this kid's going to go up."
Oh, I see. Okay, yeah, after like a quick evaluation.
Right. It would be like an evaluation period.
Sure.
You'd play with kids your age on a team. They put you on a team, and then they would just decide to move you based on, it was different. How many goalies were at the camp, what the quality of goaltending was.
Sure.
And I specifically remember the one moment where I was like, wow, I think I could do this in college. Like, this might be my future, is when I was at the University of Vermont at camp, and everybody was like, the sessions were over, we're all going to lunch, and a bunch of high school, like 3 high school goalies stuck around, and some college kids were like, hey, stay here, don't go to lunch, we're going to shoot on you guys. And I was like, I don't know, this must have been 8th or 9th grade, and I was playing with kids who were juniors and seniors, and these guys are college guys, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Yeah.
And
I'm sure they're loving it. They're like, oh, we got a couple goalies who want to see some shots.
Exactly. You know the end of this story. I didn't at the time. And they're just ripping and just like thump, just ripping into us. And a couple of the goalies after, the first round or so were shot, I'm getting pegged a bunch. And
it brought you back to your street hockey days.
Yeah.
Having all the kids just tear you apart,
a lot less equipment, but and just getting torn up by college kids. They're dodging into it. They're stepping down from like 7 yards out, and kind of holding my own. I'm not doing super well, but I'm holding my own. A couple of the goalies like wandered away, and they were just like, we're out here. And then the one goalie I stayed with, the kids are shooting on him. He's an older kid, and he was playing in the same bracket I was, or grouping, or division, I should say. And he's like, yeah, I'm going to Yale. He's like, I'm committed to Yale. And I was like, what? Like, I'm here with him, and we're going kind of shot for shot, making save for save against these guys.
Right.
And, I'm 3 years old, younger. He's 3 years older than me. He's going to Yale. I'm like, all right, well, that to me was like that moment where I was like, wow, if I continue to do this and continue to get better and continue to hone my craft, I could really do this.
Yeah, that's awesome.
And that was a big moment for me. Yeah, so that was cool.
What sticks out to me is that you're in a situation where you're completely overloaded. Kids are, pounding shots at you, and you're actually like gaining confidence, which is pretty cool. Like you said, the other goalies just kind of slowly disappeared and were like, I'm not doing this.
Yeah.
And it's like you and some older guys stick around, and for whatever reason, you're gaining confidence from that situation. That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's really cool to hear.
It also kind of might be one of the reasons why I feel like I'm mentally ill sometimes,
Well, I mean, come on. Anyone who's going to be a lacrosse goalie.
Yeah, well, that's what it is. It's just like I call it flipping the switch. It's a light switch, You see the nicest guy on earth. I mean, I still play club. I play old man lacrosse with, a bunch of my guys who I played with at Albany.
Yeah.
And, we're playing at 9, 10 at night, playing till like 11.
Yeah, right.
School night, work night, at Field of Dreams. And, man, that switch goes off. Like, you're on that field. Like, I don't care who you are. I don't care where you played and where you're from. Like, I'm going to do everything I can to compete against you and to beat you.
Yeah.
And then when it's over, or if you rip a corner on me, I'll be like, yeah, that was a good shot. Like
you got me there. You got me.
Yeah.
Let's try it again.
But
Let's
I'm going to get you on the next one. And I'm going to let you know about it too.
Yeah. Right. Right. Well, I think that's one of the great things about lacrosse. I mean, sports in general, but just that respect, that fraternity that, you can play and you can still talk a little trash, but you're still respecting each other and competing. That's like, when you become our age, that's what you look back on. And even I'm sure some of your days in college, like those are probably some of your best memories when you and one of your teammates are just drawn at each other during a practice, things like that.
Oh yeah. It happens now, even as an old man now. We play some younger teams and they you show up at the field and you're like, hey guys, what's up? And they're just like, nah, these guys are all ready to play and crush the old guys.
Yep. Yep.
They got the edge on, and then we play pretty well. I stood on my head in a couple of games, and these young guys came up to me like, "Yo, that was a great game." Like, I know I'm a big boy and I'm old, but I can get around if I need to.
That's right, man. Yeah.
So it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun.
Yes. So a topic that keeps coming up in a lot of these conversations is basically at some point in your whole journey, there was feedback, and like that feedback is really what helped propel you forward. So like you're saying, like you thought you were good, but you didn't really have any, in your mind, like true evidence of like, how good am I? Right. But then you go to camps and then you start getting moved up, or, older guys ask you to stick around a little bit. And that feedback loop becomes something that you're just like, oh, wow, now right? So I think it's important for young athletes to understand like that feedback loop is super, super important, especially if you're taking this serious and you really want to become good, right? Like, and it kind of goes back to what you said about those other goalies, how they just kind of like disappeared.
Right.
Like they didn't want the feedback. Whatever feedback they were getting, they didn't like it. So they were like, see you guys later. I'm going to lunch.
That's a huge thing for me, and even to this day. And when I train kids, I always kind of, I got to say, there's a lot of kids that I work with, and I tell the kids this, and I tell their parents this: you are a much better goalie than I ever was. 10 times more. Your lacrosse IQ is better, whatever it is.
Yeah.
but I played lacrosse with guys who were much better athletes than me, who were just, much better lacrosse players. But the one thing I knew was I'm not going to quit. I'm not going to stop.
Yeah.
There's just that feedback loop for me is I kind of like getting doubted.
Sure.
That's where I kind of thrive. When people are just like, because I'm an unassuming kind of guy, I'm a bigger guy, and like people are just like, this guy's a clown, whatever. Because I'm a pretty easygoing guy. I like to joke around a lot. And
sure.
Then, that light switch flips on me where I'm like, you know what? It's just to prove people wrong kind of switch for me. And it happened with me, a lot in my life, in my playing career. I was a backup in high school. And then I got recruited to play Division I lacrosse. So to me, I don't think I started my senior year in any game at all for lacrosse.
Yeah.
And to me, it was like, you know what, my high school career is my high school career, and I had, some issues and stuff there. But then when I got to college, like that was a whole new level of, like you said, that feedback loop where it was like, I came into the University of Albany, the first Division I season. Coach Marr had come in that year, and just like his whole vibe of positivity and next play mentality.
Yep.
Like I had felt kind of when I was a senior, like I really want to play in college, but I was a little kind of torn. Like, hey, if lacrosse keeps going like this for me, it's going to be hard for me, like just mentally, to keep playing like this. And then thank God I went to Albany and met the guys I played with, who I'm still best friends with, and close with and stuff. And that whole culture really, not only Coach Marr, but also Coach Speck, learning from Coach Speck, who I know you know.
Yep.
Phenomenal guy who I'm getting friends with and close with now too. And it's just, that feedback loop became, instead of just like me trying to do my best to get on the field, what am I doing for others to make my team better?
Sure. Well, I think the Great Danes are known for their culture and just, the personality of the program and the vibe of the whole, the whole thing. It's
right.
It is, as an outsider, I'm not an Albany guy, but it's that personality, it's the vibe, but it's by design. They're able to get those guys that have that. And whether it's kind of like what you were alluding to, like that chip on your shoulder.
Yep.
That comfortable feeling of being an underdog. Like that's, to me, that's, what Albany has. They get those kids and they do really well.
Yeah. And then once you're there, you're part of a system that, like, for me, because when I did go to Albany, I went in and I was a freshman with two senior goalies in front of me.
And that was it. Just like, 3 goalies.
Yeah, it was just 3 of us.
Wow.
And it was 2 seniors and me, and that was tough because they were fighting tooth and nail to get time because it's their last season. And then Coach put me in a couple of positions where we were having a tough game, and he's like, all right, let's go, man. You need experience. And I was like, all right, let's do this, And you're not as confident as a freshman stepping in there against the Rutgers or Stony Brook or whatever,
Of course, yeah.
Regardless of what the score is, you want to put your best foot forward, or regardless of whatever is happening in that game.
Yeah.
You want to prove that you can do it. And, even after that, a goalie came in from Yorktown who was just a phenomenal goalie, Kevin Ray.
Sure.
Who, I competed with the next year, and he started over me. So here's a kid who comes in as a freshman, and he's a 4-year starter, basically.
Yep.
And now I'm his backup, and so mentally, too, being that backup is like tough. It's really tough. You want to do everything you can every single day to make the coaches talk about you in their meetings and be like, how do we get this guy on the field?
Right. Give them a reason. Give them a reason so they can't deny you.
Yeah.
But unfortunately, as a goalie, there's only one on the field.
Exactly.
If you're a midi, you're a defenseman, attackman, like you can, especially being a midfielder, like, we could probably find one run, 2 runs for you.
Yep.
That doesn't happen as a goalie.
Yeah. Yeah, and you know, as a coach, it's a really tough position to be in as a coach, but also as a backup, like mentally, you have maybe 3 or 4 goalies on the team. Then
Right.
We had a position where then we went to about 4 goalies, and then it's the question of where are you on the depth chart, and
Yeah.
if you're not having, if they're not, and then your teammates, you're counting on them to have a huge game against a team that you should do well against, where we should be cycling goalies.
Right.
Through.
Yep.
And sometimes that doesn't happen. Sometimes there's that moment of, oh, we should crush this team, and so now this team's playing big against us, and now, sorry, you guys aren't going in.
Yep.
And then it's frustrating, and then you get in this kind of opposite feedback loop where it's very easy to become negative. It's very easy to be like down on your teammates, or even at some point be like, well, why doesn't coach trust me to play against those other teams? And so you start to doubt yourself a lot.
And I think that doubt could lead to like entitlement. Like, no, this is a game we should have, been up by 10 at half and get the next guys in. And you feel that. Yeah, no, I hear you. I hear that. So did you? I mean, it sounds like you hit some negative feelings throughout that span, but were you aware of it at the time?
Yeah, I got to say, my sophomore year, I think, was the toughest for me.
Okay.
Because, I lived with a lot of guys I'm really still close with, a lot of good friends, and they pretty much all played more than me. So I'm living with, these 5 or 6 guys, and, we're kind of leaders, I think,
yep.
in our age group. As, 2004 graduates in that age bracket.
Yeah.
But these guys are all playing more than me, so they have they're my close friends, but I also feel like that when I try and confide in people, I'm like, hey, do you think, how am I playing, whatever? Or people are like, yo, you're playing great. And then it's like, all right, well, why am I not playing?
Sure. Yeah.
Because, this, and sometimes you have to come to terms with, okay, well, if that's not my role, as a backup goalie, and this is, I stress this when I coach kids too, is like, hey, as much as we all want to say, hey, we're going to be All-Americans, we're going to be starters, we're going to be this and that, if you get to that next level, especially in Division I, how many starters are there and how many backups are there?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
And, you have to be mentally prepared to compete every single day. Are you tough enough? Yeah, you're tough enough to lift. You're tough enough to run. You're tough enough to pass those tests. You're tough enough to practice. You're tough enough to take those shots. Are you tough enough to stay there for 4 years if you're not the starter? To be part of something bigger than you.
Right.
And that's something I kind of prided myself on. And then,
Yeah, that's the best advice you can give a kid. But at 14, 15, 16 years old, when they're going through it, they're like, I'm a starter now. How much harder could it be? I'm on Long Island, playing against some of the best talent in the world. But it's tough for them to relate to that. And that's why a lot of kids do go away to school.
Where everybody's all county, where everybody was the best kid on their team.
Yep.
And now you're,
Well, I make saves on Johnny every day, and he's going to play, high D1. He's going there, so how hard could it be? But what I talk to kids a lot about is it's not just lacrosse. You go away to school, you're a freshman in college, your world is turned upside down in every single aspect you could ever imagine.
Yep.
Your sleeping habits, your eating habits, your hydration habits, school is different, social things are everything is so different, but everything's connected. So everything gets affected, whether it's good or bad.
Yep.
And obviously lacrosse is a huge piece to it.
Yep. I think when you were talking about kind of those negative thoughts that I was having at some point during my sophomore year, I think it was the fall, it became kind of evident to me that, this kid Kevin was the real deal, and it was going to be tough for me to always be competing. And my coach invited in a friend of his who had been I think it was a teammate of his at Yorktown. He was a goalie at Cuse.
Okay.
And he came in, I think he was like a Warrior rep or something, like an equipment guy, and he just came to one of our fall ball practices, and he said something that has still stuck with me to this day. He's like, you have 4 years to do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
Right
and between the eyes.
I say that
Here
to
it
my players
is.
all the time. If you're going to college, as hard as it gets, this is it, man. For 99.9% of, this is going to be it.
Yep.
You could try and play on that next level, or you could play, but you're not going to be playing for anything, unless you're playing in the MLL or PLL or NLL.
Right.
You know?
Yeah. Yeah. And that's the thing. I mean, you get 4 years to be a part of a team.
Yep.
It's like nothing else you'll ever experience in your life.
Ever.
Maybe
Ever. So,
maybe the military or maybe something like that, but most kids
right.
aren't doing that. So,
right.
But that's what you get.
I saw a lot of guys, like I said, who are better, players maybe. They just kind of like, they couldn't take not getting the time they thought they deserved, that entitlement piece you were talking about.
Yep.
And they left. And I see some of those guys around now, or I talk to a couple of them, who I'm kind of friendly with, and it's just like, you could tell they regret it.
Oh, yeah.
You could tell they're like, oh, I can't believe my senior year I just decided that I was bigger than the program.
Yeah, like staying up late and going out on Friday night was more important.
Yeah.
At that point in your life.
At the time, it might have felt like it.
Oh, of course.
You were 20.
Yeah.
Or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah.
But in reality, that's a wrap, man.
Right.
My senior year, I was chosen as a captain by my team and my, the coaching staff.
Nice.
And to me, that was like, I had succeeded, like as a backup goalie to be a captain for me, that was like,
that's special.
That was such a rare, special thing that, like, to this day, like, I really, it still means a lot to me.
It should. That's awesome.
Yeah. So that was cool.
That is special.
Yeah.
Obviously that just goes back
to do when you're in that position to make the best of what you can do for your team.
Right. Right. Well, it sounds like Coach Marr's buddy hit you in between the eyes and gave you some really good advice at the right time, and you were open to it. And obviously it changed your attitude, which was good. Or, just exposed it a little bit more,
Absolutely.
So, like, when you're working with goalies, and you're saying, like, there's one starter and there's probably, 3 to 5 backups, depending on the program. Yep. Like, when I work with all my athletes, goalies or not, I use a term all the time, just train for the rain. Like, it's kind of like what John Wooden always says, or always said, in his books and stuff about just like competitive greatness, being at your best when your best is necessary.
Right.
It's just like, or you're also talking about clutch athletes, like Jordan, Kobe, Jeter, like guys like that. And it's like, all right, well, everybody wants to be held up at the end of a game because you just hit the basket or you just made the big save. But those guys, in my opinion, those guys get there because their mentality, on some level, it came through in their training, came through somewhere, that they were okay with missing.
Yep.
So like I flip the script on a lot of kids and say, okay, well, that's good. Like, do you want to be the goalie who gets scored on in overtime? And they're like, well, what are you talking about? I'm like, well, if you want to be the goalie making the save in overtime, you're going to have to let up a lot of goals first. And they're like it's something they've never heard before. Yeah. I'm like, listen, it's just the opposite. You want all the glory. Are you willing to accept the criticism? And that seems to put a lot in perspective for kids, because and also a lot of people don't talk to them like that.
Sure.
So that's a piece that I talked a lot about. And that's to your point. Like, you got to get ready to compete. And you got to love the good, you got to love the bad, especially as a goalie.
Yeah.
And for your poor parents. I always bring that up. Goalie parents to me is brutal.
Yeah. I don't know how they did it, man. I mean, I got to say, my parents are the best, man. My dad and my mom, super supportive. I was the first one to play lacrosse in my family.
Okay.
So, they did a lot of learning. And my dad drove around this country to watch our games, knowing that I was probably not going to play.
Yep.
And he would come early to watch me do shooting drill because that was my jam. Like that was what I was there for.
It? Yeah.
And I was there to make the shooters better, and that was my game. So my dad would come in early, watch warm-ups, and get ready to watch me do shooting drill. And sometimes he'd drive, and he wouldn't be able to get in at the right time, and he'd miss it, and he would be disappointed, whatever.
Right.
But, I mean, I try and tell my goalies, like, you definitely want to be, the starting goalie, whether it's, girls lacrosse, women's lacrosse, boys, men.
Yep.
Like, you want to do everything you can. And if you can't do everything you can to be that starter at that moment, you still need to do everything you can the next day. And you can't like fall into this, well, this is my spot and that's it, and get comfortable.
Right.
No matter how long it lasts for. You have to
right.
rage against it.
And that's the slippery slope, right? Working with these kids, like trying to get them to understand that they might not be the starter, but you're also trying to be like, don't be okay with it.
Right.
So it's that weird, it's that weird, balancing act for these kids.
Yeah. And, well, part of, I'm sure you know this also from your coaching experience and your training experience, part of the recruiting process, trying to help kids get to that next level. That's one of the conversations I have with, the kid and the parent is like, hey, you need to do your research. How many goalies do they have?
Yeah.
You might want to go to this school real bad. You went on campus and you looked, but how many goalies do they have? What other goalies are coming in with you?
Right.
Because if you're not the starter, are you going to get the major you still want?
Yep.
Or are you going there to major in lacrosse? You need to get an education. You are, you
got 4 years.
Student athlete. Yeah.
Yep. You're only guaranteed. I mean, guarantee is kind of a light term, but you're only guaranteed 4 years of college.
Yep.
That's it. So
yeah. So you got to make sure that all the stars are aligning for you.
Yeah, and navigating that whole recruiting process is a whole other puzzle.
Yeah.
that's
pay
very
attention
difficult.
to the culture that's there, and pay attention to the culture that you bring. Is your attitude right? And God forbid if there was a situation. I mean, you have to prepare for anything, right?
Yep.
If you're the starter, when you become the starter, you're going to be comfortable still going to classes and still doing that work, ethic. Because I know a lot of goalies who are starters, who have been starters that I've worked with, who don't have to run in practice.
Yeah, right.
And every coach has a different philosophy on that. I'm not judging that at all, but
Yep.
I'm letting every goalie know who is recruited, like, high school is not college. You're going to have to pass a run test. And if you don't pass a run test, and I'm a big boy, so I never pass a run test, right? But if you don't pass that run test, you better bring something else to the table where, it's got to be an intangible.
Sure.
You got to be ready to compete, because those other 4 goalies that you're against, they pass the run test,
Yeah.
or whatever it is.
Yeah. So let's go back to some of your time in college. So
Sure.
So you're competing every day. You're a bright kid at that point. You're like, all right, well, this kid's really good, and I don't know what my role is, and you kind of found your role. But was there anything that you did on a daily basis that like helped you get through it? Whether it's to be a better lacrosse player or a better teammate?
Oh, yeah. First things first, I tried to set some sort of routine for what I was going to do to get better and to make my team better. There's one thing specifically that I know Coach Marr and Coach Schmeck did, and Coach Vanderlowski, who was there also at the time.
Yep.
I forgot who I don't know if they did it as a staff or one coach did it specifically. I think it was our freshman year or sophomore year, and right before, like the first meeting, they gave us an envelope with a piece of paper in it, blank piece of paper, and they said, write down your goals.
Yep.
What do you want out of this program? What do you want for yourself? Could be a small goal. Obviously try and think of something big. And I had written something to the fact that work every day, that like this would end at some point in time, like there's no tomorrow kind of thing, very cliche kind of thing, something like that.
Yep.
And do everything I could to make my team better or the best they could be, whatever.
Okay.
Because one thing we say a lot, Coach Moore brought from Maryland is kind of just be the best attitude, right? Which I try and use as much as I can. And with my kids and my own kids in my own home, myself, and also obviously all my Crease Beast goalies, just like, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You're doing your homework, be the best at doing your homework, right? Be the best at being a brother, be the best at being,
sure.
On the field. It doesn't matter. On the field, off the field, is just, to look at it that way. So I wrote something like that, put it in the envelope, gave it back to them. And then we played Cuse in the Sweet 16 my senior year. We actually did not go to graduation because, as you know, the first round of the NCAA playoffs is usually around graduation time. So we graduated at a Italian restaurant in Syracuse, which was pretty interesting. The pictures are pretty great.
Yeah, I'm sure.
So we go back, we lose in the first round, and it was heartbreaking to know it was kind of all over. That moment where you're like, wow, like this is life now. You're back to being a freshman again, but this is real life.
Yep.
And we come back to Albany. We come back, and we go to our lockers to clean out our lockers, and these envelopes are in our lockers. And everybody's looking at these envelopes, and I'm like, what are these? You totally forget. It's like 3-4 years ago, and it's the goals that we had set.
Wow.
And then written in hand, by hand. I believe it was Coach Marr and Coach Speck were writing to us about.
I just got chills.
Dude, I'm telling you. I remember like it was yesterday because I was like, what? It was very powerful. And it was just handwritten, and it was like, you did this every single day. You made people around you better. You set the bar at a certain level, you and a bunch of other guys, and you made other people, reach that. And it was great, man.
Damn.
It was really great. I have it somewhere, buried somewhere. I still have it somewhere.
Yeah.
So,
well, that's really cool.
That was my goal. Make people around me better. I got the try hard kind of label a lot.
Okay.
The guys are getting ready for a game. I'm on scout defense for man down, going against the starters for man up.
Oh yeah.
And I would be with a bunch of, I was a junior, senior with a bunch of freshmen and sophomores on that.
Yep.
And I would bring them in. I'm like, dude, let's get a stop. Screw these guys.
Yeah. Yep.
Just because they're the starters, just because whatever. If we go easy on them, they're not prepared for tomorrow's game, whatever it is. So
sure.
Lots of film, lots of preparation.
Yeah.
And
I remember that from my days playing, but I mean, certainly as being an offensive coach at every different level, it's like, all right, I got the starting extra man. Yo, man down D, let's go. Yep. Give us a look. And it's not easy.
It's the bad news bears of the team.
Yeah, but I mean, as a coach, you can always figure out which kid, is kind of the influencer in that group, and you're like, dude, get these kids going. It sounds like that was you as the goalie, which always makes it easier because you're the one who's really taking a beating. So if you're saying it, it's like, they really start to second guess. Like, all right, well, we got to put a little more effort in here.
Yeah. Well, that's what I always tell my goalies too. Is like, hey man, because I coach at North Shore High School, and sometimes we play really tough competition. And there's this one game we were playing, Cold Spring Harbor, and I was talking to my goalie, and right before the game, I looked at him in the eye, and I'm like, dude, you cannot phone this in. Like, you need to protect yourself, and you need to play. You got to stand on your head. Other guys around you might be nervous. I mean, you're going to be nervous, and that's fine too. But you got to perform. And you're going to get reps. There's no doubt about it.
I like how you phrase that as reps.
Like, but they're gonna go hard on you no matter what the score is. So if other guys decide to hang up and hang up the cleats in the middle of the game, you got to protect yourself and go for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. Definitely does. So, do you feel now that you're a teacher, anything carry over in your preparation just for, I mean, I know now is a little different being that we're quarantined and your assignment as a teacher is a lot different, but just in general, like things from your athletic experience, do you feel like things have carried over, things have worked for you as an athlete, but not as a teacher, or they work both hand in hand?
Yeah, I think they go hand in hand. I mean, I'm a big preparation kind of guy.
All right.
I like to be overly prepared.
Okay.
And that works for me in the classroom because it gives me options.
Yep.
Teachable moments and stuff like that where I could kind of take a lesson and spin it. But also, in teaching my Crease Beast goalies, kind of lacrosse IQ, the mentality stuff is like, I love to watch film. I love to watch lacrosse, and my son Connor's like that now.
Okay.
He's a lax rat, and he'll be awake at 6 a.m. watching YouTube videos on PLL highlights on Connor Fields. He's obsessed with Connor Fields.
Yeah, right, so, sure.
And he studies his movements and he steps this way and then he twists that way, or here's where he hitched. And
wow.
So it's really cool because he's taken a piece of that because he's been around so many of my goalies and he's been around so many of my trainings and clinics where I'm trying to teach goalies as much as I can. Hey, pay attention to that front shoulder. Hey, when we're tracking the ball, this is the way it's got to be done.
Right.
And then as a high school coach of, watching film, and being an assistant coach with a great staff of guys around me, great, head coach with Coach Kozlowski and Coach Katucci.
Yeah.
Great guys. And, the way they study film and break down film from what they've learned and their college experience at Hofstra and NYIT, it just feeds the beast, so to speak, because I love it too.
Sure.
So I'll break down film for my goalies and with my goalies on that team, as well as they'll break down the offense and defense, and then they'll suggest stuff too.
Yeah.
So,
did you like it as an athlete? Did you like to watch shooters as a goalie?
Yeah, I did, but it was just different. It was tougher.
I've just always gotten different feedback from different goalies. Some goalies that I've been around, they like watching film on shooters. Others try not to watch any film. So it seems to kind of go either way, either extreme.
Right. Yeah. I love to do it, but I think personally, I think it's because of my time as a backup. Because I felt I needed to bring, like I said, that intangible.
Okay. Yep.
That I kind of looked at as my role, especially with the younger D guys. It's kind of hey, take a look. This is our slide package, and this is how it works.
Interesting. Okay. Yeah.
I learned a ton from Coach Schweck on that.
So it gave you an extra advantage.
Right.
Yep.
Right. And then those guys protect me in practice,
sure.
as a backup.
Yeah.
So it's in my best interest, not only culturally for the team, to kind of try and teach these guys, because that's a big part of playing goalie, as being a leader and teaching.
Right.
Even in a live situation, sometimes you get an attackman who's stuck on the wrong side of the field and he's playing D-midi now,
Right.
Because something happened to one of your middies on the other side, or he came off, or something happened, and now you got to teach this guy if he's going or not, and what slide package you're in, and who to watch, and who's lefty, and what moves they're capable of.
Right. Or have the peace of mind to change it and lock one off and.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
No, that makes sense.
So, yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now what about as a goalie or what you train? Was there any post game techniques you used? Anything you did to decompress and figure out? Maybe it goes back to that feedback loop, but something you did or something you teach these guys now?
Yeah, it was, I was a big training room guy before practice and after practice, because I would, some guys would be like, "Hey, Rudy, how you feeling?"
Right.
I was an ice bath constantly between, getting bad shots and stuff like that.
Sure.
And, shin splints from running because I'm a big guy. Just whatever. So I'm in the training room,
Yeah.
And I developed a really good relationship with the training staff and trainers. And I stress that with my goalies too. It's hey man, you got to take care of your body, because it's not about getting hit with the ball. That hurts and that's not fun, especially in certain spots. But it's the fact that when you're playing on the college level, especially, and high school, because high school is more intense now than it was than when I played.
Yeah, for sure.
When we played.
Yep.
It really is. It's about getting hit in that spot constantly after you already injured it.
Right. Right.
So getting a shot in the thumb sucks. It's terrible. But then when you get hit in the thumb again and again, when it's still raw and that nail is still pulled up, or your toe, or that shot, on the instep of your foot or your shin.
Right.
And it just continues because there's no break, there's no rest.
Right.
You know?
And then you combine that with the mentality of, I need to make
Yep.
my teammates better.
Yep.
Well, if I'm a backup goalie and I have, my big toe nail is off,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not sitting on the sideline. So
Yep.
it's like the merging of two contradicting things, but your
Yeah.
mentality is going to win out for sure.
Yeah, and there's times when the starting goalie is just like, hey man, he gets a couple of good ones, and he's got to step out, and it's like, you look at the other 2 or 3 goalies who are behind, in the depth chart, and you're like, all right, who's going in now?
Yep.
Because everyone's cranking, they're practicing inside finishing or whatever it is, and then it's kind of like, suck it up and go, man. Like,
Yeah.
I was always like, man, I got you.
Yep.
Whether I was terrified or not, like, I got it.
Yeah.
And then overcoming that fear is a big thing too. And this is, I find this with younger goalies too. Like, sometimes parents are like, oh, we might train for a while, and then, sometimes I don't see that, player for a little bit, and then it's like, I get a text from a parent like, hey, so-and-so is stepping away from the ball. They're scared of the ball.
Right.
And especially at young ages, that's going to happen.
Yep.
I don't expect a 4th grade kid to get the mentality of, yeah, I'm up, let's go.
Right. You try to instill it. You try to instill it into the 4th grader, and eventually,
right,
with practice, just like anything else, those mental reps that he'll hopefully, with some diligence on his part, he'll actually get there.
Right. And not only that, like, I don't know if I want the 4th grader to think like that. You
right.
know?
Yeah.
Like, they're, I don't know, they're 8 or 9 or 10 years old. Like, that mentality, it hurts. That ball hurts. So kids are better and better shooters now than they ever were.
Right.
Technique-wise, training-wise, these kids have a very high lacrosse IQ at a very young age.
Yeah.
And so as a goalie who may not have that skill set yet because, they're not that developed yet,
sure.
just like hand-eye coordination-wise or how to step technique-wise, and especially in travel. You might be on a travel program that's pretty good and decent, and then you play a team that's a AA team,
right.
and
right.
in another state or another tournament, and then all of a sudden you're playing a team that should not even be in your bracket, but because of age, whatever happened, this team's playing you, and these goalies are running away from the ball a little bit, and that's going to happen at that age.
Right.
Now, if you're in high school and you're not locked into that mentality yet, and you think you're going to play on the next level, that's something you got to come to terms with.
Right. Yeah, that makes sense. And I think to your point about better shooters, better technology, than when you and I were growing up, younger goalies probably don't get hit as much as they used to.
Right.
So that probably has something to do with it also. They might be giving up more goals because these kids at younger ages are probably picking corners and shooting where they aren't. But as the goalie gets older and the shooters get older, they start to get hit. They're like, oh, I'm not used to this. It doesn't happen that often. I'm sure when you were, when we were younger, I'm sure you were getting hit a lot.
Yep. It's true.
Yeah.
It's true. Yeah. And not only that, like, I always stress to the parents too, especially for the younger kids, my son doesn't want to wear shin pads. Sorry, I can't get him to wear shin. I'm like, what? Like, no, that's not happening.
Right.
You got to wear shin pads. Like, you're going to have plenty of time to be a hero and to be a tough guy or a tough girl and get in that net later on in your career.
Sure. Well, that brings up a good point because I feel like that's been in conversation.
Yeah.
Like, should goalies wear like more protection? So you as a former goalie coach, you're saying you should.
I think if you're an elementary school age player, you need to wear some sort of. Now, here's the other thing: they don't need to be wearing leg pads because that, like hockey leg pads,
right,
or baseball leg pads.
Sure.
That's a little bit overboard. But
something within reason that's going to make them a little more protected.
Then they can't move, and then it messes with everything else. Their technical ability, the ability to move to the ball the appropriate way. It slows them down.
Yep.
But they do need to protect themselves. And I find more often than not, a lot of my clients will say that, my child feels uncomfortable in them and feels quicker without them, which is not, I think that's totally true. But, if you're taking shots and quality shots, and you're playing for a really good PAL team or travel team or playing against one, you could really do damage to yourself at that age. And I think, as you move up, obviously, into middle school and even in high school, there's times when I played in college where I had to wear a pad.
Yeah.
Because you had that sore spot, but you're still playing, and or you had that knee injury or whatever it is, and yeah, the training room makes a pad for you and whatever, and there's no shame in that,
Yep.
But when you get to a certain level, you then that's when you start, playing kind of the typical way without shin pads and stuff like that.
Yeah, I got you.
So.
I got you. Yeah, I mean, I always find it interesting when people talk about that, because I'm similar to you. Like, yeah, just do what you need to do,
Yep.
and as long as you have that mentality of like, you take pride in what you do as a goalie, like, if you're making stops, you're getting some good outlets, and your vibe in the crease
Yep.
is, productive and positive. Like, who cares what someone says about a leg, a knee pad or something like that? Like,
Yep.
it's not a big deal. But
Yep.
yeah, no, I get it.
Yeah,
and as young athletes,
attitude in your play can overcome that. Just
right?
Like
Yeah. But then the other thing for a young athlete is always like, people are going to laugh at me, or it has nothing to do with
Yep.
lacrosse. It just has something to do with the culture and what you're supposed to be wearing and what you're supposed to look like.
Yep.
But at our age, we can talk like that, but those kids still feel it.
Yeah.
A
funny story with that is my senior year, we were playing Cuse in the Sweet 16, like I mentioned before.
Yeah.
And my coach asked me to come to the office. And so I go to the office after we were like lifting or something, and I'm like, what's up? And he's like, I need you to do a favor for me and the team. And I was like, oh boy, here we go. And he's like, we're playing Cuse in, a week or whatever it was. It was after Selection Sunday. And he goes, I need you to wear these. I was like, okay. And he puts a bag on the desk.
Oh, boy.
Pressure pad.
Oh, boy.
Yep. And he's like, I need you to play lefty for a week. I was just like, what? Like, he's like, we're playing a lefty.
Yeah, right.
I need you to play lefty for shooting drill so they could see, what they're going to see coming into Cuse. And it was uncomfortable. I didn't wear the shin pads more than one or two kind of – I think I wore it once or twice during a shooting drill, and I was like, forget this. These are terrible. It shouldn't work.
Yeah.
And so I played lefty for a week, and that was the last week of my senior year, and it was hard.
Wow. Talk about doing everything to make your team better. I mean, that's like –
that was the only time I wore catcher pads, yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
Brought you right back to your baseball days. Full circle.
Yeah, exactly. That's it. Perfectly full circle.
Yeah.
Exactly, bro.
Damn. All right, so we're gonna wrap it up here.
Cool.
I mean, your insights have been awesome. The information you're sharing is awesome. The stories are great. The stories are always really good. So just let everybody know where they can find you, how they can learn more about you, your Crease Beast lacrosse stuff.
Yeah, if you go to creasebeastlacrosse.com, that's my website. Instagram is at Crease Beast Lacrosse. Right now, because of this quarantine and this bizarre situation, I'm doing some virtual training every week with players and stuff. So if you get in contact with me, you could DM me, or you could go on my website and email. And I'm setting up some times and stuff, and working virtually with players and giving them drills and watching them and showing them what the drill looks like. So it's different, but it's still really good. I mean, I'm working with a bunch of clients that work a lot, and it's good because they feel like they get out of the house, gets them into kind of lacrosse mode again, focus on something different, and get a good sweat going and everything else. So
awesome,
it's great.
Sounds good.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I appreciate your time today. Great conversation.
No, thank you so much. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
You've been listening to the Lead Domino podcast powered by MDP. We hope you enjoyed today's episode. Reach out. We'd love to chat and learn more about you and how we can help. Visit us at mdplacrosse.com and follow us on Instagram at MDP Lacrosse Training and at Lead Domino Media. Until next time, respect, inspire, and support yourselves and each other.